The alien ship floated silently in the darkness of space, its sleek hull reflecting the distant stars. Commander Veltar pressed his 4 hands against the control panel, watching the strange object on his screen. The ship had appeared 3 days ago, and nothing about it made sense. "Sir, the unknown vessel is moving again," reported his scanner operator, a young Zephyrian named Kethanel. Her blue skin flickered with nervous light patterns. Veltar studied the readings. The strange ship moved through the asteroid field like it was dancing, avoiding rocks that should have crushed it. No energy trails, no heat signatures. Yet it moved with perfect control. What kind of beings could build such a thing? He whispered to himself. Far away, on the bridge of the human ship New Horizon, Captain Jake Morrison stood looking out at the stars. His brown hair was starting to show gray at the temples, and his blue eyes carried the weight of leading humanity's first journey to another star system. "Captain, we're picking up something on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park, his first officer. She was a small woman with black hair and quick, smart eyes. "It looks like a ship." Jake turned from the window. "Distance? About 2 million kilometers. It's been following us for the past few days." Dr. Alex Chun looked up from his science station. He was a thin man with glasses who always seemed to be thinking about 3 things at once. "The energy patterns are strange. Captain, I've never seen anything like it." "Alien?" Jake asked. "Has to be. The technology is completely different from ours." Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez walked onto the bridge, wiping oil from her hands. She was a tough woman who had built half the ship's systems herself. "Captain, I'm getting weird readings from the hull. Something's scanning us." Jake felt his heart rate increase. This was it. First contact with another intelligent species. Everything humanity had dreamed of for centuries was about to happen. "Red alert?" asked Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Butler, the ship's security chief. He was a big man with scarred hands and suspicious eyes. "No," Jake said. "Yellow alert. We came here to make friends, not to fight." The bridge crew took their positions. 200 people from Earth were counting on them to get this right. Jake had trained for this moment his whole life, but now that it was here, he felt the weight of representing all of humanity. "Captain," Lisa said, "they're sending us a message. Put it on screen." The main display flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that was definitely not human. Veltar appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. His skin was pale blue, and strange patterns of light moved across his face. "Greetings, unknown vessel," the alien said. The computer translated his words into English. "I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective. Please identify yourself." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the human starship, New Horizon. We come in peace from the planet Earth." On the alien ship, Veltar's crew gathered around their commander. The readings from the human ship were getting stranger by the minute. The vessel was clearly advanced, but the technology was completely different from anything in their databases. "Humans," Veltar repeated. "We have observed your species from a distance. Your planet shows signs of unusual development patterns. We'd like to establish peaceful relations with your people," Jake said. "We've come a long way to meet you." Veltar's light patterns flickered nervously. "Before we can proceed, we must conduct a full scan of your vessel. This is standard safety protocol for first contact situations." On the human bridge, Ryan Butler stepped closer to Jake. "I don't like this, Captain. We don't know what they're really looking for." "We have nothing to hide," Jake replied. "Dr. Chun, any problems with letting them scan us?" Alex adjusted his glasses. "The scan itself won't hurt the ship, but they'll see everything. Our technology, our weapons, Our crew. Good, Jake said. Transparency builds trust. He turned back to the screen. Commander Veltar, you have our permission to scan our ship. We hope this will be the beginning of a friendship between our peoples. Veltar's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Very well. Beginning deep scan now. The Zephyrian ship's scanners came online, sending invisible beams of energy across the space between the two vessels. The beams passed through the New Horizons hull like it was made of glass, reading every component, every system, every person aboard. On the human ship, the crew watched their instruments as the alien scan washed over them. The readings were strange but not threatening. Maria checked her engineering systems twice to make sure everything was working properly. Scan complete, Veltar announced, but his voice had changed. The friendly tone was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like fear. Is everything all right, Commander? Jake asked. Veltar looked at something off-screen, then back at Jake. We ... We need time to analyze the results. Please maintain your current position. The transmission ended. The alien ship immediately began transmitting rapid signals in all directions, messages that the human computers couldn't decode. They seem upset about something, Lisa observed. What could they have seen that would worry them? Jake wondered aloud. Dr. Chun was already working on his analysis of the alien scan. I'm detecting fragments of their scan data in our systems. Give me a few minutes to piece it together. Captain, Ryan said quietly, their weapon systems just came online. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Something had gone wrong, but he had no idea what. The scan had revealed something about humanity that had frightened their new alien friends. Maintain yellow alert, he ordered, but keep our weapons offline. We're not going to be the ones who start a war. On the Zephyrian ship, Veltar was already composing his emergency message to the High Council. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of cosmic significance. The humans have arrived. They are exactly what we feared they would be. The scan had revealed everything. The human ship was a product of warfare. Their technology was built on conflict. Their crew showed no signs of the modifications that civilized species used to control their violent instincts. Humanity had reached the stars while still carrying the fire of war in their hearts. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy faced something it had almost forgotten how to handle, a species that had advanced without abandoning its capacity for violence. The age of perfect peace was about to end. The scan results flowed across the screens of the Zephyrian ship like a river of terrible truth. Science Officer Kethenel watched the data stream with growing horror, her blue skin flickering with distress patterns that hadn't been seen in centuries. Commander, she whispered, you need to see this. Veltar moved to her station, his 4 eyes focusing on the holographic display. What he saw made his blood run cold. The human ship wasn't just a vessel. It was a monument to warfare. The hull was made from alloys that had been perfected during something called World War III. The engines were based on fusion technology that had originally been designed for weapons. Even the life support systems showed traces of military engineering, built to keep people alive during long sieges. Look at this, Kethenel said, pointing to a section of the data. Their medical bay? It's designed for treating combat wounds. And their food production systems, they're built to work even under attack. Veltar's hands shook as he processed the information. Every piece of human technology told the same story. These beings had reached the stars not despite their violent nature, but because of it. What about the crew? He asked, though he feared the answer. Kethenel's light patterns dimmed. No modifications, sir. No genetic changes. No behavioral controls. They're completely natural. On the human ship, Captain Jake Morrison noticed the change in the alien vessel's behavior immediately. The friendly signals had stopped. Energy readings were spiking. Something was very wrong. "Lisa, are you getting anything from their communications?" he asked. Lieutenant Commander Park worked frantically at her station. "I'm picking up fragments." "Sir, the computer is trying to translate, but it's coming through in pieces." Dr. Chun looked up from his analysis. "I'm seeing some of their scan data in our systems. It seems they were particularly interested in our manufacturing records and crew medical files." "Medical files?" Jake frowned. "Why would they care about our health records?" "I don't know, but they've been studying our DNA patterns, our brain chemistry, our psychological profiles." Chief Engineer Rodriguez entered the bridge with a worried expression. "Captain, I've been monitoring their ship. Their weapon systems are fully charged now, and they're broadcasting something on all frequencies. Can we decode it?" "Working on it." Maria plugged her tablet into the main console. "There we go. It's a priority message to something called the High Council. They're reporting our arrival." Jake felt the situation slipping away from him. What could they have learned about us that would make them so afraid? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chan's computer finally finished processing the alien scan data that had leaked into their systems. What it revealed made him step back from his console in shock. "Captain," he said quietly, I know what's wrong. Tell me, the aliens. They've been modified. Genetically, technologically, maybe both. Their brain patterns show signs of artificial changes. Their DNA has been altered. They've removed something from themselves." "Removed what?" "Their capacity for violence, their aggression, their competitive instincts. They've literally evolved beyond warfare." The bridge fell silent. Jake felt the weight of the revelation settling over them like a heavy blanket. Humanity's greatest strength, their ability to fight, to compete, to push forward against all odds, was exactly what these aliens had chosen to abandon. "And they think we're dangerous because we haven't done the same thing," Lisa said. "More than dangerous," Alex replied. "To them, we're probably like meeting a pack of wild animals with starships." On the Zephyrian vessel, Veltar was composing his emergency report to the High Council. His words were careful, but the urgency was clear. Priority 1 communication to High Council. First contact established with species designation human. Deep scan confirms worst-case scenario. Species has achieved interstellar capability without undergoing pacification process. Repeat, they have retained full aggressive capacity. Immediate consultation required. The response came back within minutes. The High Council was calling an emergency session. Representatives from 12 species would gather to discuss the human situation. This was the first time in over 1,000 years that such a meeting had been called. Veltar transmitted the scan data to the council chambers, then waited. The humans were still maintaining their position, apparently unaware of the storm their presence had created. On the new horizon, Jake was trying to salvage the situation. "Open a channel to the alien ship." "Channel open, sir." "Commander Veltar, we sense that our scan results have concerned you. If we've done something wrong, please tell us how we can fix it." Veltar appeared on screen again, but his demeanor had completely changed. A friendly curiosity was gone, replaced by barely controlled fear. "Captain Morrison," he said carefully, "your species presents certain challenges that we were not prepared for. We have contacted our leadership for guidance." "What kind of challenges?" "Your people have developed advanced technology while maintaining certain primitive characteristics that most species abandon before achieving spaceflight." Jake felt his temper rise, but he forced himself to stay calm. "What do you mean by primitive characteristics?" "Your capacity for violence, your competitive nature, your willingness to fight for resources or territory. These traits are considered incompatible with galactic civilization. The human bridge crew exchanged glances. Ryan Butler stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm. "Are you saying we're not welcome here because we can defend ourselves?" Jake asked. "I'm saying that your species represents something that the galaxy has not encountered. In millennia, a technological civilization that has not undergone the Great Pacification." "The what?" "The process by which all advanced species remove their aggressive instincts. It is considered the necessary step toward true civilization." Dr. Chun leaned forward. "Commander, what happened to the species that didn't undergo this process?" "Veltar." Light patterns dimmed. There were no such species. Until now. The transmission ended abruptly. Jake stared at the blank screen, trying to process what he'd just heard. Humanity was alone in the galaxy, not because they were the only intelligent species, but because they were the only species that had kept their fighting spirit. "Captain," Lisa said, "I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position. Big ones." "How many?" "At least 20. Maybe more." Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These people had volunteered to come to the stars to explore, to discover, to make friends with alien civilizations. Instead, they'd found a galaxy that considered their very nature a threat. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's communication system. "We may be facing a difficult situation. Stay calm, follow orders, and remember that we represent all of humanity out here." He turned to his officers. "We're not going to change who we are to make them comfortable, but we're also not going to prove them right by starting a fight." The alien fleet began to take positions around the new horizon. 20 ships, each one larger than the human vessel, forming a perfect sphere around them. Jake had seen this formation before in Earth's military academies. It was called an encirclement. "They're trying to contain us," Ryan observed. "Let them try," Jake replied. "We'll show them that humans can be peaceful without being pacified." But deep down, he wondered if the galaxy would give them that chance. The scan had revealed everything the aliens feared most about humanity. Now, they had to prove that being warriors didn't automatically make them monsters. The question was, would the galaxy listen long enough to learn the difference? The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council had not been called in over 1,000 years. The Great Chamber of Harmony's Edge, a massive space station that orbited the galactic center, buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 species gathered to discuss the human crisis. Ambassador Threndock of the Aquilan Federation floated in his water-filled chamber, his tentacles moving in patterns that showed deep concern. The Aquilons had been the first species to undergo the Great Pacification, using advanced gene therapy to remove their predatory instincts over 3,000 years ago. "The scans are clear," he announced to the assembled delegates. "The humans have achieved faster-than-light travel without abandoning their warrior nature. This contradicts everything we know about civilized development." Elder Zarthu of the Elderans, the oldest and most respected member of the Council, studied the data with her ancient eyes. Her species had been exploring the galaxy for over 10,000 years, and they had never encountered anything like humanity. "In all our records," she said in her crackling voice, "every species that reached the stars had first learned to control their violent impulses. It was considered the universal law of advancement." Representative Morden of the Solaron Collective adjusted his technological implants. His people had chosen a different path to peace, using brain modifications to suppress aggressive thoughts. The question is not how they achieved this impossible development, but what we do about it. The debate that followed was unlike anything the Council had seen in centuries. For so long, they had dealt only with the calm, reasoned discussions of pacified species. Now they faced a crisis that demanded the kind of decisive action their ancestors might have taken. "We should offer them immediate assistance," suggested Ambassador Lyandra of the Healing Worlds. If they wish to join galactic civilization, they must undergo the pacification process. It is for their own good as much as ours. And if they refuse? Asked Commander Veltar, who had been invited to provide first-hand observations of the humans. Then they must be contained, Morden replied. A species with their technological capability and aggressive nature could destabilize the entire galaxy. Elder Zarthel raised her hand for silence. Before we make any decisions, we must understand what we are dealing with. Commander Veltar, tell us about your direct contact with these humans. Veltar's light patterns flickered as he recalled the encounter. They appeared friendly, almost eager to establish peaceful relations. But their ship, it tells a different story. Every component was built for warfare. Their hull can withstand attacks that would destroy our vessels. Their weapon systems are integrated into every level of their technology. What about their crew? Asked Threnduk. That's the most disturbing part. They show no signs of internal conflict despite their violent nature. They work together efficiently, follow orders without question, and seem genuinely committed to peaceful exploration. Impossible, Morden said. Aggressive species cannot maintain such cooperation without external control. Yet they do, Veltar insisted. I watched their captain make decisions that balanced military readiness with diplomatic courtesy. They could have attacked us when we surrounded them, but they chose to wait and communicate. The council chamber fell silent as the representatives processed this information. It challenged everything they believed about the nature of intelligence and civilization. Dr. Kefenel, who had been analyzing the human scan data, stepped forward. Honored delegates, I believe I have discovered something important about the humans. Speak, Elder Zarthul commanded. The humans have not simply retained their aggressive instincts. They have learned to channel them into positive activities. Their warfare technology becomes exploration technology. Their competitive nature drives scientific advancement. Their protective instincts create strong social bonds. Are you suggesting that their violence is actually beneficial? Lyandra asked in horror. I'm suggesting that they have found a way to keep the benefits of their warrior nature while controlling its destructive aspects. They fight against problems, not just people. The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. For millennia, the galactic species had believed that violence was purely destructive, something that had to be eliminated completely. The idea that it could be redirected and used constructively was revolutionary. Even if this is true, Morden argued, they still present a threat. What happens when their peaceful intentions change? What happens when they decide they want our territory or resources? Then we face something we haven't dealt with in thousands of years, Elder Zarthul said quietly. A war. The word hung in the air like a poison cloud. None of the species represented in the chamber had fought a real war in so long that they had forgotten what it meant. Their weapons were ceremonial. Their military forces were peacekeeping units. They had achieved perfect harmony by removing their capacity for conflict. We cannot allow this, Threnduk declared. The peace we have built is too precious to risk. But what if removing their aggressive nature destroys what makes them unique? Kefenel asked. What if their warrior spirit is the source of their creativity and drive? Ambassador Wyeth of the Synthetic Minds processed this thought with mechanical precision. Analysis indicates that pacified species show decreased innovation rates, reduced exploration activity, and lower reproductive success. Statistical correlation suggests possible connection to pacification process. The chamber erupted in discussion. For the first time in centuries, the council was experiencing something approaching argument. Voices were raised, tentacles waved, and light patterns flashed in displays of emotion that had been suppressed for generations. Elder Zarthul stood slowly, her ancient frame commanding attention. There is something you all need to know. something that has been hidden in the deepest archives for over 5,000 years. The chamber quieted. Before our species underwent pacification, we were explorers, innovators, creators. We built wonders that we can no longer imagine. We pushed the boundaries of science and art and philosophy. We were alive in a way that we no longer understand. Elder, Thrindock said carefully, surely you don't suggest that our pacification was a mistake? I suggest that we may have traded our souls for our safety. And now these humans have arrived to remind us of what we lost. The debate continued for hours, but eventually a decision was reached. The humans would be given a choice: undergo the pacification process and join galactic civilization, or remain isolated in a frontier sector where they could not threaten the established order. The vote was close. Some species wanted immediate military action. Others argued for patient observation. But the moderates won, led by Elder Zarthul's ancient wisdom. We will offer them membership in our civilization, she announced. But they must prove that they can control their nature without destroying it. If they can do this, perhaps they can teach us something we have forgotten. As the council session ended, representatives from each species returned to their ships with heavy hearts. They had just made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Either humanity would join them in their peaceful existence, or they would serve as a reminder of what all the galactic species had sacrificed in the name of harmony. Commander Veltar prepared to return to his ship with the Council's decision. He would offer the humans a choice that no species had ever been given before: change who they were to fit in, or remain who they were and face the consequences. As he traveled back toward the human ship, he wondered which choice they would make. And deep in his modified mind, a tiny voice that had been silenced for millennia whispered a question that terrified him. What if the humans were right to keep their fire? The message from the Galactic Council arrived 3 days after the alien fleet had surrounded the New Horizon. Captain Jake Morrison read it twice before calling his senior staff to the conference room. The words were polite, but the meaning was clear: change or be cast out. They're calling it the Great Pacification, Jake explained to his assembled officers. Every species that joins galactic civilization must undergo modifications to remove their aggressive instincts. Dr. Alex Chun adjusted his glasses as he studied the technical specifications. It's comprehensive. Genetic therapy, neural implants, behavioral conditioning. They want to fundamentally alter what makes us human. And if we refuse? Asked Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park. Permanent exile to a frontier sector. No contact with galactic civilization, except for essential trade. Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez slammed her fist on the table. They want to lobotomize. Used to make us acceptable to their perfect society. Maria, Jake warned, but she continued. No, Captain. Look at what they're offering. They want to remove our ability to fight, to compete, to push boundaries. They want to turn us into sheep. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Butler nodded grimly. I've been analyzing their military capabilities. Without our aggressive instincts, we'd be defenseless. 1 generation of pacified humans, and we'd be completely dependent on their protection. But we'd have access to their technology, Lisa pointed out. Their medicine, their science, their accumulated knowledge of thousands of years. What good is knowledge if we lose the drive to use it? Alex asked. I've been studying their scientific output. It's maintenance, not innovation. They're caretakers of discoveries made by their ancestors. Jake listened to the debate with growing certainty. As a captain, he'd learned to trust his instincts, and every instinct he had was screaming that the aliens' offer was wrong. I want to talk to them, he announced. Face to face. If they want us to make this choice, they need to understand what they're asking us to give up. The meeting was arranged on the neutral station Harmony's Edge. Jake brought Alex, Lisa, and Maria with him, leaving Ryan in command of the New Horizon, with strict orders to avoid any aggressive actions. The shuttle bay of the alien station was unlike anything they'd ever seen. The architecture was all curves and soft angles, designed to promote calm and tranquility. Even the lighting seemed engineered to reduce stress. Commander Veltar met them at the airlock, along with representatives from 3 other species. The aliens were curious about the humans, but Jake could see the fear in their eyes. "Welcome to Harmony's Edge," Veltar said. "I hope this meeting will help us understand each other better." The conference room was a marvel of engineering, with environmental controls adjusted for each species. The humans sat in chairs designed for their physiology, breathing air that had been perfectly balanced for their needs. Elder Zarthul spoke first, her ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. "Captain Morrison, we have studied your species extensively. You have achieved something remarkable, technological advancement, without abandoning your natural aggressive instincts." "Thank you," Jake replied carefully. "However, this presents a problem. Every species in galactic civilization has undergone the pacification process. It is the foundation of our peace." Dr. Chun leaned forward. "Elder, may I ask what you've gained from this process?" "Perfect harmony. No wars, no conflicts, no suffering caused by aggressive behavior. And what have you lost?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Elder Zarthul's ancient eyes flickered with something that might have been memory. "We have lost nothing that was worth keeping," she said finally. Maria couldn't contain herself. "You've lost everything that makes life worth living." "When was the last time any of your species explored a new star system? When did you last make a breakthrough discovery? When did you last create something that made the universe better?" The alien representatives exchanged glances. Ambassador Threndock of the Aquilans spoke up, his tentacles moving in agitated patterns. "We maintain our civilization. We preserve knowledge. We ensure peace." "You exist," Jake said. "You don't live." "Living and fighting are not the same thing," Veltar protested. "Aren't they?" Lisa asked. "We fight against ignorance, so we learn. We fight against limitations, so we grow. We fight against injustice, so we create better societies. Our wars have been terrible, but they've also driven us to become more than we were." Dr. Chun pulled up a holographic display showing human history. "Look at our medical advances. Most of them came from treating battlefield injuries. Our space technology was developed to give us an advantage over enemies. Our greatest achievements were born from our greatest conflicts. But at what cost?" Asked Representative Morden of the Solarans. "How many of your people have died in these conflicts?" "Too many," Jake admitted. "But the alternative isn't worth considering. Look at your own records. Before pacification, your species were explorers, inventors, artists. You pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Now you maintain what others built." "We have peace," Elder Zarthul said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You have stagnation," Maria replied. "You've traded growth for safety, potential for certainty. You've chosen to exist rather than to live." The room fell silent. Jake could see that his words were having an effect, but he wasn't sure if it was positive or negative. "What you're asking us to do," he continued, "is to cut out the heart of what makes us human. Our aggression isn't just about violence. It's about refusing to accept the status quo. It's about fighting for something better." "And if we allow you to keep this nature," Veltar asked, "what guarantee do we have that you won't turn it against us?" "None," Jake said honestly. "But we're not asking you to trust us blindly. We're asking you to give us a chance to prove that warriors can also be protectors." Dr. Chun activated another display, showing the human crew of the New Horizon. "Look at our people. We've been surrounded by your ships for days. We could have fought. We chose to talk. We've had weapons that could destroy planets, but we've never used them. We've had the capacity for terrible violence, but we've also had the wisdom to restrain it. Your species is young, Elder Zarthul observed. What happens when you grow? Older? When resources become scarce? When you face real threats? Then we'll fight, Jake said without hesitation. But we'll fight the right enemies for the right reasons. We'll fight to protect what we love, not to destroy what we hate. The aliens conferred among themselves in their own languages, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of lights, sounds, and movements. Finally, Elder Zarthul spoke again. Captain Morrison, we will make you an offer. We will grant your species provisional membership in galactic civilization. You will be given a frontier sector to colonize and develop. But you will be watched. If you prove that you can control your nature without destroying it, perhaps full membership will be possible. And if we fail your test, Lisa asked, then you will be contained until you choose to undergo pacification. Jake looked at his officers. He could see the determination in their eyes. They had come to the stars to explore, to discover, to make humanity's mark on the galaxy. They wouldn't do it by becoming something they weren't. We accept, he said. But understand this. We're not going to change who we are to make you comfortable. We're going to show you that being human is something worth preserving. Elder Zarthul's ancient eyes seemed to twinkle. Perhaps, Captain Morrison, you will show us something we have forgotten about ourselves. As the meeting ended and the humans prepared to return to their ship, Jake felt the weight of representing his entire species. They had been given a chance, but it came with enormous responsibility. The galaxy was watching. The question was, would humanity prove that warriors could also be guardians of peace? Or would they confirm the aliens' worst fears about the nature of aggressive species? The answer would determine not just humanity's future, but the future of galactic civilization itself. As they returned to the new horizon, Jake made a silent promise. Humanity would not surrender its fire. Instead, they would learn to use it to light the way for others. 6 months after the conference at Harmony's Edge, the effects of humanity's presence rippled through the galaxy like waves in a still pond. The frontier sector assigned to the humans, once considered worthless by galactic standards, had become the most active region of space in 1,000 years. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the New Horizon, now serving as humanity's first embassy ship, watching the construction of humanity's first interstellar colony. The planet below, which they had named Haven, was transforming from a barren rock into a thriving world. The terraforming is ahead of schedule, reported Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez, who had become the project's lead coordinator. The atmospheric processors are working at 150% efficiency. How did we improve on alien technology so quickly? Asked Dr. Alex Chun, who had been studying the galactic database of terraforming techniques. We didn't improve it, Maria replied with a grin. We broke it, fixed it, and rebuilt it to work better. The aliens designed it to maintain stable conditions. We redesigned it to fight hostile environments. Jake nodded, understanding the difference. The aliens had created technology for a peaceful universe. Humans had adapted it for a universe where you had to fight for everything you wanted to achieve. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park called from the communications station. We're receiving a message from the Zephyrian research vessel. They're requesting permission to study our colony. Again? Jake asked. It was the third request this week. They're particularly interested in our crop yields. Apparently, we're producing food at twice the rate their models predicted. The requests had been coming from all over the galaxy. Scientists, researchers, and even some government officials wanted to understand how humans were achieving such rapid progress. The official reports described it as applied aggression theory, but Jake knew the truth was simpler. They were working like their lives depended on it. Because, in a way, they did. Grant them access, Jake decided. But make sure they understand our methods might be intense for their standards. Dr. Chun looked up from his analysis of the latest research data. Captain, we're seeing something unusual in the reports from other sectors. Several alien species are showing increased activity levels. What kind of activity? Exploration missions, scientific research, even some territorial disputes. Nothing serious, but it's the first time in centuries that the Galactic Monitoring Systems have detected any competitive behavior. Jake frowned. Are we causing problems? I don't think so. But our presence seems to be awakening something in them. The proof came later that day when a young Zephyrian scientist named Nelthara arrived at the colony. Unlike the older aliens Jake had met, this one's light patterns were bright and rapid, showing an energy that seemed almost human. Captain Morrison, she said, her words coming fast through the translator. I need to ask you something important. How do you make yourselves care so much? Jake was taken aback by the directness of the question. What do you mean? Your people work like everything. Matters. You solve problems like failure isn't an option. You explore like you're racing against time. My people, we do our jobs. We follow procedures. We maintain systems. But we don single quotes, burn the way you do. Dr. Chun stepped forward, intrigued. Nelthara, are you saying you want to feel that drive? Yes, she said without hesitation. And I'm not the only one. All across the galaxy, young people from every species are asking the same question. We've heard about the humans who refuse to be pacified, and we want to understand what we're missing. Lisa pulled up a report on her tablet. Captain, we've been getting similar inquiries from dozens of young aliens. They're calling themselves the Rekindled. The what? They want to know if it's possible to reverse the pacification process. They want to get back what their ancestors gave up. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. This was exactly what the Galactic Council had feared might happen. Humanity's influence was spreading, awakening something in the alien species that had been sleeping for millennia. Nelthara, he said carefully, you need to understand that what you're asking for comes with risks. Our nature has given us great achievements, but it's also caused terrible destruction. I know, she replied, but look what you've accomplished. In just 6 months, you've transformed a dead world into a garden. You've improved our technology. You've shown us possibilities we never imagined. Maybe the risks are worth taking. Over the following weeks, the trickle of alien visitors became a flood. Young Zephyrians, Solarans, Aquilans, and members of species Jake had never heard of came to observe human colonies. They wanted to understand how beings with unmodified brains could work together so effectively. The answer, Jake realized, was that humans had learned to channel their aggressive instincts into positive directions. They competed with problems, not just each other. They fought against limitations, not just enemies. They had kept their fire, but learned to control where it burned. Dr. Chun became the galaxy's leading expert on what the aliens were calling managed aggression. He worked with alien scientists to understand how their ancestors had lived before pacification, and what it might take to safely reverse some of the modifications. The genetic changes are extensive, he explained to a group of Aquilan researchers. But they're not irreversible. The neural implants can be removed. The behavioral conditioning can be undone. The question is whether your people are ready for what comes next. The breakthrough came when Elder Zarthul arrived at Haven aboard her personal vessel. The ancient Eldarin had lived through her species' pacification process and remembered what life had been like before. I have come to see for myself, she told Jake as they walked through the colony's main settlement. The Council is concerned about the changes we're observing throughout the galaxy. What kind of changes? Crime rates are increasing for the first time in centuries, but so are innovation indices. There have been 3 territorial disputes this month, but also 5 major scientific breakthroughs. It's as if the galaxy is waking up from a long sleep. They stopped at the colony's research center, where human and alien scientists were working together on a project to improve interstellar communication. A sight of different species arguing passionately about theoretical physics would have been impossible just months earlier. Is this what you wanted? Elder Zarthel asked. We wanted to show the galaxy that being warriors doesn't make us monsters, Jake replied. But I think we've done something more. We've reminded everyone what it feels like to be truly alive. The old Eldarin's eyes showed something Jake had never seen in an alien before. Tears. Do you know what we called ourselves before the pacification? She asked. We called ourselves the Fire Bearers. We believed that the spark of competition and drive was sacred, something to be cherished and directed, not destroyed. What changed your minds? Fear. We had a war that nearly destroyed us, and in our terror, we decided that the safest path was to remove our capacity for conflict entirely. But in doing so, we lost more than our ability to fight. We lost our ability to truly live. The transformation of galactic civilization accelerated over the following months. The Council tried to maintain control, but the movement they were calling the Rekindling spread faster than they could contain it. Young aliens began removing their behavioral implants. Scientists started taking risks again. Explorers pushed into unknown regions of space. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy was growing instead of just maintaining. There were problems, of course. Some conflicts turned violent. Crime rates did increase. But the creative explosion that followed dwarfed these concerns. Art, music, literature, and scientific discovery flourished as the alien species rediscovered their passion. The culmination came when the Galactic Council voted to officially recognize the Rekindling movement and establish new protocols for species that chose to reverse their pacification. The vote was close, but it passed. Commander Veltar, who had been the first to scan the human ship, found Jake on Haven's observation deck as the colony celebrated the news. Captain, he said, his light patterns brighter than Jake had ever seen. Them, I owe you an apology. For what? When we first scanned your ship, we saw everything we feared most about your species. We never imagined we might see everything we missed most about our own. Jake looked out at the thriving colony below, where humans and aliens worked side by side, competing and collaborating, fighting problems and celebrating solutions. What do you see now? He asked. Hope, Veltar replied. For the first time in 1,000 years, I see hope for the future. The new horizon prepared for its next mission, leading a joint expedition to the galactic core with representatives from every species, both pacified and rekindled. It would be the largest exploration mission in galactic history, driven by the Chi-story, driven by the Chia. Same fire that had originally brought each species to the star's dock. As Jake watched the mixed crew board his ship, he reflected on the words of the ancient prophecy that Elder Zarthil had shared with him. Humanity had indeed brought fire to the galaxy, but not the fire of destruction. They had brought the fire of life itself, the spark that turns mere existence into adventure, survival into achievement, and fear into the fuel for reaching beyond. What seems possible, the galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in thousands of awe,